There are so many things that in the course of the day so that everything runs smoothly. But what I really love are those student ambassadors that can take a teacher around and tell the school story from the student's lens.
Hi, friend. Are you ready to move into a leadership position? Do you have interests and ambitions that you want to pursue, but feel like you don't know how to take that next step? Maybe you want to start your own coaching or consulting agency. I'm Mel, and I help educators define their career path through correct mindset, knowing your options, and getting prepared for your career transition. I will show you how to level up your leadership skills, share your expertise in a new way, create impact on a larger scale, and put your leadership in motion. As an educator for over 20 years, I started to feel underused and like I had more to give. I knew when the time had come for me to leave the classroom and affect change on a larger level. Now, I'm ready to help you determine where your talents and skills mesh with your passions and interests. Put your leadership in motion and move into that next phase of your educational career journey. Let me help you define your career path by having the right mindset, knowing your options, and getting prepared for that next leadership position. So power up and put your leadership in motion. Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm your host, Dr. Mel Vandevort. Today I have with me a local guest. She is in the St. Louis area where I'm located. I have Dr. Jana Haywood with me today. How are you doing, Jana?
Oh, I'm wonderful. The sun is shining. School was successful today, so I'm feeling really good.
Well, welcome to the show. I am super excited to have you on. Jana is a school administrator. She is an author. She is a speaker. She put on an amazing summit. Did you call it a summit? I can't even remember how it was labeled exactly.
Yeah, it was the St. Louis Women's Summit, Leadership Summit, hosted by Love and Leadership on the campus of St. Louis University. It was amazing.
Yes, it was amazing. I was able to attend, and it was a great time. Definitely,
Thank you.
you could feel the camaraderie, and you could just feel the Holy Spirit in there. It was a great time, great time. So thank you for doing that. So Jana,
Absolutely.
tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey in education and what has led you to where you are now.
Sure. My story, like most people's, has some twists and turns and a little complicated journey, considering that, I really had never left school. And so as a student, I was always happy in school spaces. I was a part of a lot of sports teams and then thought that I would be a professional athlete. That didn't quite happen. And so I used my undergrad degree, which is in business administration with an emphasis in accounting and finance, and just realized like I like people way more than spreadsheets. Those things came together at the perfect time because my son, who was 2, was displaying some developmental delays. And so what I understood is that I needed to know everything I possibly could to be the strongest advocate on his behalf. And so I returned to the workforce in a different fashion. I took an alternative certification program into education through Fontbonne University, and I've never left. And so I have been a teacher for special education, general education, high school math, as well as assistant principal, instructional coach, and principal. And now my role is in central office as the chief human resource officer. So have enjoyed my 20 plus years of service in the K-12 space and have worked a little at higher ed as an adjunct professor.
Wonderful. That is a well-rounded background in education. And I didn't realize you had a business background. I started as a marketing management. Um, and yeah, I was kind of the same way. I'm like, as I got through the program, and I mean, I was close to the end, and I'm just like, I don't love this. And I saw my best friend who had gone into education, and I'm like, I like her program better. And so I had already signed up for classes, and I went in and changed my major and signed up for different classes. And yeah, so I mean, it does come in handy still yet, you still have that background. So it's always good for that. But
It does. I really feel like we're a compilation of all of our experiences and passions. And
Absolutely.
so, even now in my HR role, I didn't necessarily think that I was going to find my way back to a business seat, but I get to still incorporate my experience in the classroom as I'm selecting talent every single day. And so,
Hmm.
and I understand the intricacies and nuances of what it means to be a great teacher and great leader in the school space. So I think that has supported my
Yes.
efforts. Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm.
So, Jana, I would love to talk today. You gave me a few topics that I could choose from, and I am super excited to talk about recruitment and retention. It's that time of year when teachers are looking and they're thinking about moving into some leadership roles. And, my audience is new and aspiring administrators building leaders, and we're thinking about that. So, thinking along the lines of teachers moving into that role or they've already accepted a role, but also once you're in that role and you're thinking back, okay, so how do I keep the teachers that I have happy and keep them here long term? Because it takes a lot to, it's a lot of investment in a new staff member, and we want to make sure that we're keeping those people when we get them into our building if they are good, and we don't want to lose them.
No, I mean, there's so much to be said about recruitment and retention, especially in the landscape that is education during this time in history. And so it's no secret, everyone knows we have a teacher shortage in a way that has never existed in our profession. And so we've had to be really creative and strategic around how to get people excited about being a teacher. And then I think the other piece is as people advance to their degree, having a real understanding of what it means to be in leadership, because there used to be this
Mhm.
idea that once you get to the principal's office, you kind of sit behind the desk, make morning announcements, afternoon announcements, and maybe do some observations in between, talk to some parents. But the lift of being a leader is significant. And I think being able to truly outline what that looks like, the daily workload, allows those teachers who are being groomed or cultivated to move into
Mhm.
leadership to have a real understanding of the work. And so
Yes.
yeah, I mean, some of the things for recruitment, no matter what level in the field of education, I think that's really important is us just really championing our voices, those of us who are in the work that say our children are worth it, but also that the work itself is manageable because this
Mhm.
next generation of teachers and leaders, they want to have work-life balance, right? We all keep talking about
Yes.
this. They're like, I'm
Yep.
not willing to give 10 of my 24 hours or 12 of my 24 hours to the work. So being able to come up with ways where they can have a fulfilling career as well as a fulfilling family and home life, I think has been really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And we didn't really think about work-life balance. I remember being in elementary school, and my principal was Mr. Roy Green, and he was this extremely tall, skinny guy, and he was wonderful to have around, but I just saw him as the guy who was in the office, the principal who was in the office. He would occasionally come in our classrooms, and that is not the case anymore. When I was a
Mhm.
principal, I was in classrooms every single day. I wanted to know what was going on in my building. I wanted to be in there to get to know the teachers, get to know their teaching styles, know the kids, and who I needed to be really good friends with. And no, there's just so much more to being a principal than sitting in an office. And like you said, it can be a heavy load. And we need to make sure that we have the right people with us to help lighten that load.
Yeah, I think that as the things have shifted with our kind of accountability measures that were put in place for education around just standards and end of year testing, it did change the way we do school forever.
Yeah.
And so being in that classroom to make sure that teachers are covering those standards and understanding the personalization of education for every student that's in that seat as they are looking for those proficiency metrics, I think is
Hmm.
very important. And we started talking about school leaders as instructional leaders. And so at one
Yes.
point in time, administration was heavy on the management and operations side, but you have to have a true blend of both in order to really have a school climate and culture that can thrive. And I think that's one of the things that we're looking at for all of our staff and our students. And so
Mm-hmm.
whether it be the classroom teacher, the counselor, the office professional, or assistant principal, principal, everyone working together in that ecosystem to ensure that our students are doing well and that they're thriving.
Yes, absolutely. So, what are some innovative approaches that you are seeing? As you know, you're in a bigger district. And so,
Mhm.
some of my audience, they may be from rural. I worked in a very small school district when I was principal. And then I came to St. Louis after that, seeing the larger end of things, bigger school districts and stuff. What are some innovative approaches? Because in a larger school district, sometimes maybe as a teacher, you might not feel seen. You may feel like you're just an employee or a number, and you're not. But when it's a larger district like that, maybe
Mhm.
you do feel that way. So, what are some innovative approaches that you guys are taking or you've seen other schools taking to get those teachers in the door and to keep them there once you do get them in the door?
Yeah, well, when you say innovative, I've been talking a lot about this lately with colleagues because I think we're all going back to the basics of what we know foundationally around building healthy relationships with other humans. And so
Mhm.
you use the word seen. One of the biggest bang for your buck strategies that anyone can do is actually acknowledging the presence of another when they're in the workspace. And so visiting the schools or encouraging leaders to stop by every single room every day just to check
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
with the adults is a high retention strategy. And so,
Mhm.
as you're having these authentic conversations, which I think is also very important, it can't just look like you're going through a checklist item that day, but that you're having authentic conversations that you revisit throughout the course of the week or through, the time that you spend with your staff. I think that really lets them know that they are seen. And then, man, when you write the newsletter out to the families or to the staff and you actually incorporate something that you saw with them doing well in their classroom, then all of a sudden people are like, come visit my class. And then you begin to see this cross pollination of positive energy throughout the building.
Mhm.
And people
Yes.
want to be, right? People want to be in a winning situation. They want to be in a healthy culture. And so I think those are some things that can be done. I would also just maybe posture that people are walking billboards. And so how you interact with others or the words that are coming out of your mouth or your body language
Mhm.
even is a great retention strategy. So if you do feel yourself like entering a zone that's red, that might not be the time to go in the hallway as the school leader to
Right.
interact with the children or with community members. Like you want to get yourself back to that zone of regulation so that when they see you, it feels like the attractive, loving, caring, nurturing space that you're recruiting them or trying to retain them in. I
Mhm.
laughed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I laughed about that with a social worker today because I was visiting with the support staff in the student services department, and I asked them. I said, "Well, what color are you?" And they kind of looked at me strangely, and I
Mhm.
said,
Mhm.
"Well,
Right.
I'm experiencing a blue environment," and they said, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." And so
Yes.
I think that's important.
Yeah. And as you were talking about body language, I was thinking, I have ADHD. And so even though I'm hearing you, it sometimes appears I'm not. It sometimes appears I'm checked out. And sometimes I'll stand in a certain way that looks like I'm disengaged or have a barrier or something like that. So I've had to be really cognizant of just how I stand. And it's not that I am in a bad mood or in a red zone or anything like that. It's just, I've got so much in my head and I don't always think about how I'm postured. And so I have to be really cognizant of that for sure. And another thing I wanted to mention is I went through the MLDS, the Missouri Leadership Development System,
Mhm.
and it was fantastic. And our one of the things that we talked about was every classroom every day. Now, if you're in a big building and you just can't do it every day, you still need to be in classrooms every day, maybe just not the same classrooms every single day. Where I'm from, it was rural and I was able to make it through every classroom every single day. And that was great for building relationships. And it was not me going in there to check up and see how things were going. I would pop my head in, say, good morning. Do you need anything? How's it going today? Those kind of things. You don't want to just only go in there in an observation type setting, and because your teachers are on guard every time you walk in the door then, and then there's never going to be that good relationship with them.
No, so true. And even as a building principal, I shared the tell with my teachers so that they knew when I was observing. So, of course, you have
Mhm.
those scheduled observations so they know you're coming. But then those unscheduled situations. So I told them when I'm just visiting, I'm hands free. And when I
Yeah.
pop in, I'm just here to interact with students and just to be of support because I have some additional time and would love to be in the space learning with you and with the students. But when I
Yeah.
had my device in my hand, well, I'm
Yeah.
probably going to take some notes and send you some feedback. So,
Right. Exactly.
yes.
Exactly. Exactly. Definitely. So another thing I wanted to talk to you about. So now we're thinking about some innovative approaches. One of my biggest pet peeves that I have seen through my years of education, and I've seen some good examples of it, and I've seen some really poor examples of it, is onboarding. And that can be one of the things where you can lose your teachers first thing if you do not onboard them properly. And I'm not just talking about central office onboarding. Yes, that's
Mhm.
important. But I'm talking about bringing someone into your building who has never been in your building before, and they don't understand procedures. They don't understand the systems. They don't know anything. So, what are some words of wisdom you can give to our aspiring and new leaders who are bringing on new staff?
Yes, so I think there are two layers that have been effective that I've seen work in spaces. Is one, you need an induction teacher. So I think having someone in the building, if it's a smaller situation, you can have a person. If you have larger departments, because I led a school with 2,000 students, so I had several people, kind of the department chairs, often were the induction teachers for the new individuals who were onboarding, and they can really give the lay of the land because yes, school is school, but there's always a way that you do it in your school. And so them being able to connect to on the first day, who wants to, similar to students, who wants to eat along on their first day at work. So you already
Exactly.
have it kind of scheduled out, and they can answer those questions that maybe no one even thought about. As simple as maybe parking might be something if you're on a large campus, or uh, you know,
Exactly.
there are so many things that in the course of a day so that everything runs smoothly. But what I really love are those student ambassadors that can take a teacher around and tell the school story from the student's lens. Even
That is an amazing idea.
well, thank you. Yeah, so they who tells the story better than a kid? They're always so enthusiastic and they don't leave out any of the details.
Exactly.
They're not in a rush. Um,
Exactly.
yes. And they'll tell you the
Yeah.
secrets that maybe the adults don't know. Like, you really need to pay attention to that hallway because that's normally where we will see this something taking place, or
Right.
this is where we have our color wars during Spirit Week. I mean, I've just heard them tell the story in such a beautiful fashion, and it never sounds the same, but it's
And that's a
always,
leadership opportunity for the students as well. I
yes.
am a big advocate of student leadership. So that is a wonderful idea.
Well, thank you. No, so I hope people can incorporate that. The only other things that I would say is checking in on your new teacher for onboarding.
Mhm.
So you talked about central office. It's always a great opportunity for improvement, but the more communication I think that happens in the early stages, especially like over communicating, not assuming that
Mhm.
they know any of the rhythms or patterns of what's going to happen, to the point where they might come to you and say, I went through a certification program, right? But it's just like, I want to make sure that you're okay. So we've
Right.
outlined pretty much anything that could happen in the day in the life of a teacher.
Yeah. And it's a good idea at the end of the school year, or even quarterly, or however you want to do it, whatever works best in your context, is to check in with them and say, hey, like you said, how could we improve your experience coming in? And, just give us the dish and tell us what we need to do differently, because I don't know that I've ever been asked that
Mhm.
being onboarded anywhere. I don't think I've ever been asked, hey, what could we have done better to help you have a smooth transition into our building and into our
Yeah.
district? So,
What a missed thank you, because as an HR professional, it's definitely a missed opportunity. We
yeah,
asked during the exit interview some questions, but then they're already gone. So I want to
well,
learn
exactly.
how we can retain you. Yes.
Exactly. Exactly. And they may or may not be coming from another district. And so they might have brought some great things with them as well. So, yeah,
Yeah, no, we don't have to have all the answers. That's what I love about this
exactly.
profession as well. Why reinvent the wheel? Let's steal from your neighbors, from your sisters.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And everybody's got great things they're doing in their buildings. And so
Yes.
if we could just all pool those together, my goodness, we'd have some amazing schools. Well, I mean, we've got some amazing schools, but like they would almost be flawless at that point. We're just going to go with that. I know that's never going to happen, but we're going to say it's going to. So,
It's aspirational. I love it.
exactly. Exactly. Goals. We have goals.
Yes, we do.
Um, so let's think about career growth and leadership opportunities. So
Mhm.
we talked about student leadership opportunities. What about those new teachers coming into your building? Or, I mean, they may not be new to education, but they may be new to your building, or even the ones that are there that have been there for a while. What are some career growth or some leadership opportunities because we want to keep these teachers that are great. We don't want them to leave. So, what can we do to offer them that career growth and those leadership opportunities?
Yeah, so thank you for that question, because my book, Move Without the Ball, really talks about transitions and how to put yourself in position to be ready when a career opportunity presents itself. And so, what I would recommend for anyone who's looking to advance, whether, teacher or any industry, is you have to do the job before you get the job. And it feels like this old saying, but it's so true, because you want to have the attention of the folks who are going to be in the decision making position when the time is
Mm-hmm.
right. And so, really volunteering and availing yourself to be the chairperson of said committee is a way that I think people can help move themselves into a leadership role. All of our schools have professional learning communities at this time. So, choosing a position or role that you can demonstrate your instructional leadership in that space, where your colleagues begin to see you as an authority or someone who's serious about the learning of the students and just being able to do data analysis. I think that is something that helps. I would
Mm-hmm.
say seeking out a mentor. So someone who is in the seat that you're seeking or that you desire to grow into, because then that person can informally help you gain the skills maybe or competencies that aren't there currently and share those with you. I believe in being a part of professional organizations, because those opportunities often, the network of people will say your name and when there's something that's coming up that feels like a good fit. Going to conferences and workshops so that you can continue to gather, and deepen and broaden the skills that you already have
Yes.
is another way. I mean, there are just lots of situations where you should be putting yourself out in front of others, saying, "Hey, don't forget about me. See me. I'm available and ready."
Mm-hmm.
And then I
Right.
I think that the other piece, because some people are a little more quiet and they have a different approach, I think that your work should definitely speak for itself. So it is going to be very challenging to be a average teacher and move into a leadership role. So if you want to move into
Mm-hmm.
leadership, you need to be the star teacher in your department, in your school, so that those things will speak. Your students will be your greatest resume writer when they hear,
Right.
people start talking about Dr. Dr. Haywood in the lunchroom. Then the principal here is like, what's all this buzz
Right.
about? The superintendent that's visiting that day with the principal is like, well, take me to that classroom. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
those, incidental things really make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And when you have those opportunities, think about your skill set, those things that you're really good at. You were mentioning that. One thing that I was really good at as a teacher was technology. I wasn't scared of technology. You
Mm.
know, when I first went into education, it was brand new. We had dial up and it was, it was rough. And as technology grew, I just embraced it and I learned. And I was one who could teach others how to do that. And so think about your passions, those things that really light you up, that you really like to do, and then where your skills mesh with those. And those are the things that you can move into a leadership opportunity using.
Oh, yeah, that just ties so beautifully with what we talked about earlier. As a leader, you're going to work a lot of hours. It's going to be a lift. And so if you're doing something you're passionate about, it doesn't feel like drudgery or something that you
Yes.
just accepted. You're going to be excited to
Mhm.
be there. You're going to do your best work. And so I definitely agree with you on that one.
Yeah. Professional development is my jam. I love it. And so when I get to an opportunity to lead professional development, it doesn't feel like work at all. I love it. So, yeah, choose something that you absolutely love to do, and it will never feel like
Feel
work.
like work.
Exactly. Exactly. So, Jana, we are running out of time. So,
Okay.
I would love it if you would give my audience maybe just one last spark of inspiration. It can even be something from your book,
Okay.
and make sure that you mention that again at the end, your book, so they'll know where to find it. But give these new and aspiring leaders some Jana wisdom.
All right. So I guess that when I think about wisdom that I would have loved to have heard when I was just getting started, it's start before you're ready because everybody makes mistakes and it's okay. In
Mhm.
school is a learning space. And so
Yes, it
you
is.
want to take risk, be surrounded by a support system that's going to be able to say, okay, that's exciting, that's working, we need these resources, or say, how about we pump the brakes on that just a little while? Let's let this initiative that was launched last month actually take before
Right.
you introduce a new one. And I would say give yourself as much grace as you give the children and the staff that you love and lead, because we often will extend to others in a manner that we don't necessarily provide for ourselves. And so, as you are beginning your leadership journey, please be sure to just be full of grace and patience with yourself. You're doing great work. If you weren't supposed to be the person in the seat, that no one would have chosen you, but they did. And so, from the book, I would say keep moving. This is an ever evolving journey full of adventure,
Yes.
and don't miss the scenery because you're so focused on being the solver of all problems. Us leaders are often asked to do many things, but
Hmm.
what we really need to do is be able to come back the next day and love and lead so that our children and our staff can be better.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And I wrote down school is a learning place because I've never really even thought of it that way. Yes, I've always thought of it's a learning place for students, but then it's a learning place for teachers as well. It's a learning place for everyone. And so we always tell our students, it's okay to be vulnerable and it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay not to know the answers. But as the educator, the teacher, the person
Yes.
in charge, we always feel like we need to have all the answers. And we're not always going to have all the answers, and that's okay. So give yourself some grace and some freedom. Take that monkey off your back because you don't have to carry that load anymore. Because Dr. Haywood said we don't have to know it all because we can learn
No.
it as we go. So, yay. And yes. And one last thing is, like you said, you're not going to know everything when you walk in the door. You're going to learn as you go. So, my thought is I'm going back biblical here. God does not call the equipped, he equips the called. And so he will equip you as you need. And if he
Amen.
yeah. So if you waited until you were ready, you're never going to go. You're always going to wait because you're never going to be completely ready and you're always going to learn more as you go.
So much truth. Amen to that.
Yes, yes. So, tell us how we can connect with you. Tell us about your book first and then tell us how we can find your book and connect with you.
Excellent. So the book is Move Without the Ball, a playbook for success in sports and life, because I kind of teased at the beginning. That was my first career. And you can get it on Amazon or on my website, which is Illumin Solutions Group ISG. And so would love to do more conversations around what it means to be a leader, perhaps some conversations around, transitions that you might be experiencing one-on-one from a coaching standpoint. And so you can find me on any social media. I'm on LinkedIn. Lumen Solutions Group is on Instagram as well as X and TikTok. So I look forward to connecting further real soon.
Absolutely. And for my audience, you know that I will have all of her links in the show notes, so you will not have any problem connecting with her or finding her book. Jana, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. I've wanted to have you on the show for a while, and I kind of feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, or maybe I just like connected your name because I wanted you to be part of it a long time ago. But I had a summit a while back. It was the Ignite Leadership Summit a few years ago. And I kind of feel like maybe, and maybe it wasn't you, but I feel like maybe you were going to be part of that at one time, and maybe something happened and you weren't able to, or something. I don't remember, but I'm so glad you were able to be on here today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I hope to be back on again at some point in time. And I appreciate
Absolutely.
the awareness that you're bringing to all of these very important concepts and topics in the field of education.
Well, thank you so much. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. So education is who we are. It's who we are. We are educators. So, and for the rest of you, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you have an amazing weekend, and I will see you back here same time, same place next week. Bye-bye.